Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the entire lawyer team, I welcome you all in today's event. As we all know, in India, the National Consumer Day is observed every year on December 24th to spread awareness about consumer importance, their rights and responsibilities. On December 24, 1986, the Consumer Protection Act received the approval from President of India and it came into force. On this day, I would like to quote what Mahatma Gandhi ji said. Customers are the most important visitor on our premises. They are not dependent on us. We are dependent on them. They are not an interruption in our work. They are the purpose of it. They are not outsiders in our business. They are part of it. We are not doing them a favor by serving them. They are doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so. So, very rightfully said. With this thought, I hand it over to Sahil to welcome everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. रहा संघर्ष तो से जंग जीती है सूर्य बनकर वही निकलता. Good afternoon, everyone. Lloyd, welcome you once again for another series on India 2021 and beyond. Today, we are celebrating National Consumer Day. As Himanshu sir said, in India, the National Consumer Day is observed every year on December 24th to spread awareness about consumer importance, their rights, and responsibility. Today, the topic for the discussion is India 2021 and beyond consumer protection and advocacy in the new normal. Before introducing the guests, today I would like to thank Jennifer Ma'am, IT Minister Goa, for blessing all the guests and the viewers for the session.
Good afternoon. I am happy to see the lawyers take an initiative on this Consumer Day. I wish the viewers and the guests all the best and my blessings to them. Thank you.
Also, Justice Sangeeta Dhingra could not join because of the last working day today, so she has sent her blessings for the guests and the viewers. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, without wasting much of time, let me introduce you to our guest of honor today, Srimati Dr. Kalpana Gopalan. Dr. Kalpana, IAS, is a composite public policy professional, a true versatilist. She wears many hats: practitioners, policymaker, scholar, author, volunteer, and a mother. A 33-year-old work experience in the Indian Administrative Service spans land administration, urban management, public distribution system, sports, rural development, youth, training, public grievances redressal, and education. She is now the Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Public Grievance Redressal and Youth Empowerment, Government of Karnataka. Dr. Kalpana is recipient of the Mother Teresa Women Empowerment Award for outstanding contribution to excellence in leadership, the International Human Rights Award under the Women of Courage category 2019, the Sexy Brilliant COVID Leadership Award, the Social Activist Pratibha Saman, the South Nation Human Rights Association Award, the Inspiring Changemaker Giving Economy Award, and the Thought Leader Certification of Dr. GSK Social Labs 2020. She was recognized as a great warrior of humanity by the International Human Rights Advisory Council for her outstanding performance, commitment, contribution, and dedication towards the humanitarian services and best practices on COVID-19 prevention 2020, and was appreciated by UNICEF and the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences for support in COVID-19 response. She's a LinkedIn Wonder Woman and inspirational leader. She was facilitated and awarded citations and commendations by the National Social Scheme Karnataka, Bangalore University, NITT University, Inopia University, Mysore University, and the list goes on. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Now, let me introduce you. Who needs no introduction, Mr. Gaurav Bhakti, actor and entrepreneur. Gaurav is the known face in the entertainment industry. Gaurav Bhakti is an emerging citizen rights leader and actor. Gaurav was co-founding member of the historic anti-corruption movement led by Anna Hazare. He has been seen on 150 plus panel discussions and interviews on BBC Worldwide, CBC, CNN, IBN, NDTV, Star News, and other national and international media. Thank you, Gaurav, for joining with us today. Now we have Arpita Mukherjee, India Head Legal, Fab India Overseas Private Limited. Legal and compliance professional in leadership roles at a country level and regional level at Fab India, Metro Catch, and Kerry, Levi Strattles and Company, Arian Technologies. At present, she heads the legal function of at Fab India. Previously held the role of Legal, Data Protection Office, and Antitrust Compliance Office at Metro Group for its India business. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Rama Iyer. Dr. Rama Iyer, founder and managing partner, Ayana Legal, has close to 3 decades of experience and has striven to ensure that the firm has carved a niche for itself in the legal realm for services in corporate advisory and transactions, real estate, IPR, banking, labor and employment laws, insurance and consumer laws, dispute resolution, and arbitration. Equipped with her vast experience in IPR, corporate laws, commercial transactions, and ADR, she has represented leading organizations, individuals, financial institutions, hospital, business establishment, trust, association, etc. in various fora including the Supreme Court of India, High Court of various states, trial courts, tribunal, and commissions to the name few. Dr. Ayer enjoys a close association with various professionals, organizations, and is a member of the Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, India International ADR Association, Law Asia, International Council of Jurists, etc. Dr. Ayer was also invited for a consultation on international law in February 2014 by the International Court of Justice. Thank you, ma'am, for joining with us today.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Now, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Himanshu Gupta, founder and CEO, Lawyer. Mr. Himanshu is a dynamic management and a techie, an entrepreneur, a visionary by potential, and innovator by the intellect. Himanshu, with his legal and business expertise, has recognized the fault points in the present culture of legal and business strategic services. His vision to make India a place where every individual and startup should become Atmanirbhar from their basic legal need. His idea of Lloyd started way back in 2018, has now catered around 1 lakh plus individuals and 50,000 plus startups to be legally empowered. He is also a mentor for many budding entrepreneurs and helps them in enriching their knowledge and by broadening their venues to solve the problems pertaining to society. Under his leadership, Lloyd has been recognized under top 100 startups to watch in 2020. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Sai.
Now, I would request Himanshu, sir, to please take over the screen and start the discussion.
Before that, Sahil, I think we would request our guest of honor to say a few words about the opening with the opening of the event.
Sure, sir. I would like to invite Dr. Kalpana ma'am to please.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you all for being here. My greetings to my fellow speakers and panelists, Mr. Gaurav Bhakti, Dr. Rama Iyer, and Ms. Arpita Mukherjee. And my congratulations to the organizers at Lloyd for organizing this event on an issue of critical importance. In setting the tone for today's panel discussion on consumer protection and advocacy for the new normal, I will place just one proposition before you. Take the battle to the field. A few days ago, I was reviewing the annual report of the Karnataka State Consumer Commission. I found that in the last 2 years, they received 69 complaints, all of which were disposed of. I'm not even going into the merits of the cases here. The figures alone speak for themselves. In Karnataka State, with over 6 crore population, highly digitized, with a large educated techie segment, with millions of commercial transactions, With about 5 crore EVA bills and 25 crore invoice transactions raised by the Commercial Tax Department last year alone, there are just 69 complaints filed before the Consumer Forum in 2 years, approximately one a month. This is one aspect of the issue. Now, let us move from the forum to the streets.
Yeah.
Just imagine, you have just nipped out of your home to buy a pound of bread, and in the few yards to reach your grocer, you navigate mopeds speeding on the sidewalk, the vegetable vendors' wares spill out on the street, the paving stones are wobbling. What do? You grumble. The internet is too slow. We saw that just now. The mobile service provider overcharges you. What do? You grumble.
Yeah.
So that is what we do. We Indians, when faced with commercial callousness, apathy, even cruelty. I hope you recall that passenger who was manhandled on the tarmac by airline staff.
Yeah.
What do? We just grumble. Callousness reaches a level of criminal negligence, then we do raise our decibel level. We escalate our reaction to debate. We discuss under the banyan tree or on TV panels in loud, impassioned voices. What we do not do, what we never do, is to take the battle to the field.
Yeah.
Then one day, crisis strikes. When COVID-19 swept across our country, we saw empty hospital beds while patients died on the streets. Swabs improperly taken and wrongly labeled. Tests giving positive and negative results alternatively on the same patient. We were shocked, appalled, but we could do precious little, for we are so conditioned to just grumble and blame and debate and little else. Consumer protection needs to gain traction. To my mind, there are 3 vectors of change. First, awareness and advocacy. Second, regulation and reform. And third, mindset and attitude. Let us look at awareness and advocacy. How many of us actually bother to check the weight and quantity of a product before buying it? Clearly not a majority, as a survey on consumers in Karnataka found. According to that report, only 56% of 608 respondents in Karnataka checked the weight and quantity of products before purchasing. Corroborating the statement by activists that most consumers don't voice their complaints to the seller, the survey found that 89% of respondents never made a formal complaint. While 7% registered their complaints, a mere 1% approached consumer protection forums for grievance redressal.
Yes.
None among those surveyed approached the sector ombudsman for redressal. At the national level, over 61% of 11,000 respondents were found to informally voice their complaints. While 93% never bothered to complain formally, a negligible 0.3% approached consumer fora for redressal. So this is where we need to focus first, create awareness. This is primarily the task of NGOs and advocacy organizations. The second vector of change is regulation and reform. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 was amended in 2019 to make it more relevant and up to date. The new act touches on aspects such as mediation and e-commerce, which the world was unaware of in 1986. Digitalization has changed the way a consumer conducts online transactions, and modes of shopping have shifted from offline to online. The 2019 Act is a positive step towards reformation, development, and enhancing consumer rights. However, challenges remain. For instance, The Central Consumer Protection Authority, CCPA, was set up to promote, protect and enhance consumer rights. The headquarters would be in Delhi and regional offices as decided by the government. The authority would regulate the violation of consumer rights, unfair trade practices and misleading advertisements. To enforce and enhance this authority will be the dedicated task for the government, and its implication will certainly be very important for the implementation of the Act. While this is a laudable initiative, it is yet unclear as to how the authority will function and how it will implement those provisions relating to investigations and inquiries. There is an overlap between the functions of the Director General and the CCPA. Appeal against CCPA orders can be only preferred before the National Commission, but the circumstances or criteria for appeal are still unclear. It is unclear whether the existing cases would be transferred on account of change in pecuniary jurisdiction. So, further clarity is required for effective implementation of the amended Act. This is the role of the government and the judiciary. The third vector of change is that of attitude and mindset change. It is here that the role of the consumer, you and I, comes in. It can start with very simple things. Start reading labels. Know the ingredients that go into the products that you purchase. Check packaging and spillage. In offline shopping, watch while items are weighed and refuse to accept what is not weighed. In online shopping, return items if unsatisfactory. Don't turn a blind eye to impolite salesmen, whether they are rude to you or to someone else. As a consumer, you can opt out. You can opt out of a shop, opt out of a chain, opt out of a hotel, opt out of a service provider. Just opt out and then blog in Facebook and LinkedIn and other fora as to why you opted out. Once my baggage disappeared on a flight returning from overseas to Delhi, and the airline personnel were indifferent. I recorded the interaction and threatened to put it on Facebook. My baggage appeared by magic. So, please stand up for yourself. That is the least that you can do. So, I see three vectors of change as we take the battle to the field. First, awareness and advocacy, which is the job of activist and advocacy organizations like yours. Second, regulation and reform, which is the job of the government and the judiciary. And third, mindset and attitude, which is our job. This is where the significance of the Consumer Protection Day and today's event comes in. While congratulating our organizers once again, I would exhort our panel to discuss all three aspects of consumer protection. Thank you all. Good luck with the discussions. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So sorry, just for the interruption, ma'am. A token of appreciation from the side of lawyer. Thank you for joining with us, ma'am. Rishwin, a token of appreciation. Thank you so much. Thank you,
nice.
ma'am.
What a pleasure.
We'll be looking forward for more such opportunities, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Himanshu sir, I would like to request you to start the discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, ma'am, for setting the tone and agenda for our discussion today. Keeping these three vectors in mind, I mean, you rightly said awareness, regulation, and the attitude is something that we need to, that can solve this problem. Taking cues from what you said, ma'am, is during this COVID-19 pandemic, I mean, though largely the population has suffered, but the shift has happened. It has accelerated the shift towards the digital world. As people have rightfully turned to online platforms to shop, I mean, those people who were buying stuff from the local Karyana shop or maybe local groceries, I mean, from around the corner, they have now started buying it from online and they have gotten used to this new normal. All this telework, work from home, connecting with families and friends. Even nowadays, we also celebrate birthdays and anniversaries with our distant relatives over Zoom call or any other online platform. But the key point remains: what are the ways to protect consumer in this digital era? Because now everybody goes to this digital medium. Not everyone is aware of the privacy and also the digital aspects of it. So the first and foremost is the legislative frameworks. To address this, the increasing market power of platforms to protect consumers from unfair and misleading practices. I would like to address this question to Rama ma'am. From legislative perspective, what are the ways to protect consumers in this digital era, which is becoming new normal?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me in this discussion today on the most important important day for all consumers, where we celebrate the power that consumers received with the enactment of the Consumer Protection Act and in 1986, and then further amended for new acts coming in place of the 86 Act in 2019, which has been even notified now. So so there are a couple of major additions to the legislation. One is bringing in e-commerce and electronic service provider. These two have the act. So the legislation from the traditional areas where a consumer used to interact, or the consumer, where one had to physically go to a shop and buy things, or certain activities which were in the traditional range, that has been expanded to sync in with time, and it now encompasses the e-commerce. As you rightly said, all interactions also happens through the web and through various digital platforms. So the Act has inserted the definition of e-commerce, and e-commerce, it says, means buying or selling goods or services, including digital products, over digital or electronic networks. Okay, so that is one addition. And of course, the online dispute resolution method, that also has got a fillip through this legislation. So these two, that is the introduction of mediation in consumer disputes, one, and the other is with respect to the bringing in online transactions within the scope of the Consumer Protection Act, and then regulating that is what we see in the new legislation. And also, when we talk about mediation being brought in, the fillip given to online dispute resolution methods, which can be much faster, as well as it can be much cheaper. But again, it will have its, there's a lot of work that has to go in, even though the legislation has been there. Now, with the COVID coming in, we've seen that the courts have not really taken to functioning like how we expected the other courts to function. The consumer fora, as well as the state commission, at least I'm talking in Karnataka, has not really pulled up the socks like we expected it to rise to the occasion, like the high courts and other courts have functioned. So that way they have not taken this too seriously, is my view.
Thank you so much for this insights, ma'am. I think rightfully said there are various frameworks, though the legislative frameworks have been there in existence for quite some time, and modifications with regards to this new normal is the key thing that is now being taken care of. On this similar point, my question to you, Abita ma'am, is from business perspective, how do you see that online, from a consumer perspective, what are the expectations for faster dispute resolution mechanisms? You represent the business side as well as the legal side. So from business side or the consumer's perspective, what are the expectations for faster dispute resolutions?
So, firstly, I must sort of share with all of you that as a brand, our approach is always to help sort out any issue that is raised by a consumer internally. So we would ideally not like anybody to get disappointed with our own in-house mechanism and go approach a court. So I'm very happy to tell you that more often than not, we are able to satisfy a consumer. And in today's time, in the last, I should say about 8 months, so we started online services way back in the month of May, actually, or maybe end April, May, until date, So there has been a flurry of activity on the online platform especially for stuff like food and personal consumption items like personal care category products and a whole lot of furniture and furnishings. So and in terms of a ballparking, so furniture is something that really gives us grief because somebody buys something online and then what gets delivered, especially the work from home range, somebody has a problem with with the ergonomics or something. So when you see something online on a picture and finally when the article arrives at home, there is often a note of what should I say, a difference in the way things appeared and the reality. So in all these cases, I think we've been very fortunate and we've had internally we've almost doubled our capacity for consumer dispute redressal. Given the philosophy that we don't want anybody to get disappointed and approach external agencies, and we've been successful. So it's a two-way thing that firstly keep a close eye and talk to the consumer, and we've also sort of engaged with them on a 1900 kind of service line where anybody who is approached for buying something which is bulk or heavy duty, we would approach, we'll talk to them, we'll tell them that this is what you're buying and this is what you are likely to get. And when it comes to things, I mean, we take pride in calling out our products as natural and from not from man-made kind of stuff, so be it wood or be it any other fabric. So the idea is to sort of tell everybody that if it is wood, you are buying, what you are buying is like hardwood. So it will have its own tone deficiencies. It will be lighter somewhere or harder somewhere. It will have the knots. It will have the eyes and all of that. So coming back, where we feel we have succeeded in a reasonable way is by engaging with the consumer and not taking the person for granted that okay, now he or she has to buy, so let's just let her just buy. And so you'll be rather I'm happy to share that we've seen minimum returns in this period and maximum amount of conversation. So we, like I said, we doubled capacities. We had people to talk to these people. We trained our store staff who were otherwise doing store activities. We sort of quickly trained them to talk to consumers on phone and give them all the education that they may need in terms of a product that they're buying. So these are some of the things we have done to really see that the engagement is positive. And of course, the fact is, like you all opened the session by calling the consumer the king. Yes, and king and how? I mean, today we are in a situation where a footfall is like it's like a lottery. Everybody is just waiting that let somebody walk in, and then it's up to us to make a sale. And so consumer has been and is and will continue to be the king and the emperor. So
Right.
so
Right. So
yeah.
I mean, that's very true, ma'am. And I think in the COVID period itself, we ourselves at Lawyer Platform, we saw our footfall on our website almost going by 6 to 7 times. So, so that's what we believe. Though not everybody gets converted as a customer or a user of the platform in the right books and the way we think. But yes, footfall is something that everybody is now yearning for. And in this digital era, these websites, these mobile apps, and these solutions have become the new shops, new offices for selling. So, taking the discussion further from legislative frameworks I would like to throw some light on the functioning of consumer dispute resolutions. Now, as ma'am had earlier said, that the three vectors, awareness, regulation, and attitude, though we've been thrusting upon the use of legal framework for raising your grievance, but the numbers do not show the actual grievances that the people see. However, now in the digital era, the people are getting used to submitting their grievance online. My question to Rama ma'am is, how do you see that? What are the main issues in the functioning of the Consumer Dispute Resolution Commission amid and after the lockdown? So, how do you see that the challenge? What are the challenges that you see are getting encountered now?
See, mainly, as I told it some time back, that the time taken by the consumer fora and the commission to decide on disputes is really long, and that really puts off the consumers many times from approaching the consumer fora and the commissions, whatever, for dispute resolution. So that is something that the problem all through. And now with online dispute resolution mechanisms being promoted, and another thing as mentioned by Arpita ji about in-house mechanisms which could be parallel, which could be the first step before anyone approached the formal fora for any dispute resolution. If each big business had something like an ombudsman or someone who could really take care of any kind of dispute or even dissatisfaction with maybe product or service, it would help a lot in reducing the number of cases that go to the formal method of dispute resolution. So now what I feel is, now with the kind of online dispute resolution methods being encouraged and also mediation being encouraged, I have a feeling that it is more about the consumers understanding and the awareness that is required to be spread to make the consumers understand their rights and the choices they can make, and also the avenues that they can choose. That is one thing that really needs to be done. Otherwise, it will become very difficult, even because with the pandemic, I don't think it is even possible for anyone to think of personally going, and now it's not required. You can just send an email. But again, that technologically challenged people will be there. So I have a kind of suggestion where there are some kiosks where it could be at the ward level of municipality, or where you just go and give a complaint, or your medical shop, they could have some kind of line, helpline or something where consumers could just go and tell them that this is the problem that I'm facing, and the access of courts, of dispute resolution and all that will become much easier, and people need not physically go over to a commission or a forum to lodge their complaint. So this is another thing. This is about education, awareness, and also access. Access by, medical shop is just a thought. It need not be that, because medical stores are places where people generally will go to. So there could be some kiosk or something there which could, the person could operate himself, or there could be somebody to help. So these are the things that I can think off my head in this. And then also the fact that now we have the online transactions also brought in within the framework of Consumer Protection Act. It becomes necessary for the presiding officers and others to be well aware of what happens when a person transact online to be able to adjudicate better. So if it is the same persons, they will have to be trained. They will have to be trained not only with what happens, but also to use technology. So these are the problems and of course the solutions.
Solutions. Yeah, so rightfully said, ma'am. One thing that I would like to take a cue from what you just mentioned is, so while these are the things, the challenges that are people facing with regards to consumer dispute resolution, and what are the suggestions for improving it. So Arpita ma'am, I would like to ask you, what, in your opinion, I'm sure your corporate, your function handles clients from tier 2, tier 3 cities. So in tier 2, tier 3 cities, we expect people not too tech savvy. I mean, while sending an email is considered a regular thing, just like walking for us. But for tier 2, tier 3 cities, it might not be that easy to send out an email about a grievance. So are there any ways for them to, I mean, put up a grievance? What are your suggestions to improve this consumer dispute resolution for keeping tier 2, tier 3 cities in mind?
Yeah, so I hear your question. So in tier two, tier three, so as a brand, or as someone who's on this side of the table, I would actually always advocate, and I have been advocating, that it is up to the brand to ensure that the customer is ultimately satisfied, because at the end of the day, you are here for him, like we all started. And there are ways and means that one can adopt to help a consumer uh, reach a level of satisfaction that is desirable. So in tier 2, it is you'll be surprised that in at least in my experience, people are way too savvy than we think. So consumers, if even if they don't know anything about the company, they just hit the MCA website. I don't know how they do it. And they just send an email to all the directors named there. This is the most common way a consumer reaches out to a brand. And I'm talking about it, out of my last how many, almost 10 years of working experience with retailers in India. So they reach out. Tier 1, tier 2 is not a problem at all. Tier 3 does something very interesting, because in tier 3 cities, we as a brand operate only through franchisees. We don't have company owned and operated stores in tier 3 towns. So there, I think the easiest approach they take is to first reach out to the franchisee and say, I bought this, I have a problem with this, or I simply don't like it, and you do something about it. More often than not, the franchisee in a tier 3 city knows the consumer very well. So somebody who comes to Fab India once a month or once in 2 months, there is always a kind of a personal relationship with that person. So more often than not, they sort it out right there, and it's in the franchisee's interest also to sort it out, because each dispute, it comes up to the head office. There is a whole process, and there are loss of credits and all of that. So in my experience, it is best handled by the front line at the store, being able to sort of deal with it with the customer in a manner that is a civil and be responsive. And like Kalpana ji mentioned, that do not accept rude behavior. So that's something which also we, as a matter of almost as a routine, we train people that whatever it is, you need to be civil and you need to listen to people. If somebody has a problem, the last thing we would want is to allow it to go unheard. So more often than not, in a tier 3, tier 2 city, we are able to manage it internally within our our own given mechanisms. And for the terribly aggrieved person, he does reach out to us. And in my view, my observation is like Ramaji was just now saying, that for whatever reason, I think people are they're more comfortable reaching out to the brand than go to the court. And I don't want to comment on the reasons as to why. I mean, it should be left to our own intelligence and imagination. But at the end of the day, they are able to get what they want by pushing us, taking us to the last corner, and even at times I would say slightly, bordering on unjust requests also we adhere to. So
Yeah.
at times, I mean, I'm sorry, there is, this is the elephant in the room. At times, people are also very unreasonable, and so they challenge your stuff like your gift voucher. That if you have said that a gift voucher is valid till X date, then they push and they threaten that no, the date has passed, but I don't care, you do this, you do that, and all of that. But even in those cases, I've seen there is always a hesitation to go hit the court. Now how that is going to change, or does it at all need to change? In my mind, it is actually better as less number of people go to court, because that would mean that a seller is actually genuinely taking care of the customer. Because if you manage to look after the customer the way it is desired, then
Yeah.
less number of people go there and waste resources that are anyway scarce in a country like India. So coming back, I think as a brand and as a professional, it is always our approach that make sure that nobody has to go to a court. Of course, I mean, it's not good for us, it's not good for that person. And at the end of the day, also the current, the advent of social media has also changed the game, because people, like Kalpana ji mentioned, that you put it up on Facebook and you see magic happen, which is true. I mean, I can tell you it is true. As a brand, if you ask me honestly, I am more petrified of a social media derogatory post than a lawsuit before a consumer forum. Because I know that's a forum where I have a voice, where I will be represented and I'll present my case. But a social media platform is often a one-way traffic. I mean, you can say something and you'll get trolled by a million people for, the way it impacts a brand is significant. So therefore, to dovetail it back to where I began. So the reason why we like to have a very robust process to address consumer issues are these two: that A, we don't want the court, and B, we certainly don't want the social media. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but these are
Of
kind
course.
of
Yeah.
yeah.
So while thank you so much, ma'am, for bringing this, and you rightly said the brands like Fab India are doing wonderful job in ensuring that the consumer rights are protected and also the grievances are very well addressed prior to they hitting the court or social media.
Yeah.
While no brand can be 100% covered from this perspective, but the objective is to minimize this grievance as to the bare minimum. But that's just the one angle from brand's perspective. But however, there are certain other many other players in the market which are not as established brands as like Fab India, or may not have outlets now because of digital era. It's purely creating a mobile app solution somewhere around the corner in the country. They can reach out to any consumer or customers across the board. How about those customers where the seller or the provider is not present across? How do you think those? What are the ways for them to raise the concern other than just email? So, is there anything that you can think of from their perspective as well?
Yeah, sure. So, so my if now I will basically wear the hat of a consumer and tell you how I feel.
Yes.
So, firstly, if let's say I agree with you, Fab India is too big a name to mess around with its own reputation, if I may say so bluntly. But there could be other smaller players, and I may go online. I may go on a marketplace where the marketplace just washes its hands off, saying, I'm just a platform, I don't know, you are buying what you're buying.
Yeah.
So as a consumer, I would always think that if I'm buying from a brand which is lesser known, or I'm buying from someone, either a product or a service, that someone is a kind of a startup, someone who doesn't have a 60-year-old legacy of a Fab India that they may be very willing to protect. I don't know whether that person is in the game for long, or he's something fly by night. So therefore, as a consumer, I feel that it is very important to take a closer look as to who the person is from whom I'm buying something. Now, if I am buying things like, let's say, food or personal care, definitely I would like people to read carefully, like ma'am suggested. Read all the declarations. What are you buying? What is packed inside? Is there spillage? Is there something else? Return if you don't like it, and don't hesitate to raise a stink if you need to. That is number one. Number two, if you are buying things which are larger, high value, I think it is very, very important to do a little more due diligence than just to go and click and buy, let's say, a refrigerator or a computer from an entity who's less known, or who you frankly don't know who he is. And wherever there are accreditations, that are available, it's important to take a look at all of those. So essentially, I would ideally like myself to be aware of the, that buyer beware concept.
Okay.
That, let's look carefully at what we are buying, and ensure that what we bought online and what we actually received by way of a parcel are the same and meets
Yeah.
our satisfaction. And if unsatisfied, take it up immediately. One thing that is there today is that people are available on an email, on phone, on a toll-free number, and there are umpteen,
Yeah.
avenues available.
Yeah.
In case I am, let's say, as a consumer, I'm in a tier 3 or a tier 4, urban, semi-urban, rural area. There are agencies, there are people who are willing to help and
Okay.
assist you in, reaching out to the right people. So do what it takes, but take care that you are aware of what you have bought is what has been delivered to you. And I think this is what would be my suggestion to the consumer. And so don't leave anybody. Also, if you have bought something from someone who is very big and you are feeling overwhelmed that, okay, I bought something, let's say, from a brand who's mega brand, I don't want to name anybody. And you were feeling overwhelmed that how do I reach out to this brand to say that this was wrong and that was wrong. That is something which is best sort of shared immediately. It is
Yes.
better to talk to the brand than to go to a court. It will be far easier, trust me.
That's right. I think advocacy is as important as it should be the first step
Yes,
before we actually plunge into taking the legal course.
yes,
In case we're not heard, of course, then it is
of course.
the legal right to take it to the court. So,
Sure.
welcome, Gaurav. I can see you joining the session. Thank you so much taking your time. Uh, a
Thank you,
question for
Manju.
you while
Yep.
we're into the discussion regarding consumer rights, protection, and advocacy. So, during this COVID-19 period, what are the main challenges that a consumer has experienced due to COVID-19? I mean, right from the pre-COVID era, that is how I generally address, to the COVID-19 era that is now happening, where people have started buying more and more online. What are the challenges that they are experiencing in terms of where their consumer rights are challenged, where consumer rights are compromised?
I think the issues have perhaps remained the same, but exaggerated now during these times, simply because the nature of the transactions has increased tremendously online. So the volumes have gone up, and the issues that they're facing have amplified, both offline and online, I must add, because so we're based in Goa, and we deal with a lot of this. And as ma'am was just talking, the awareness levels are absolutely not there, and that's the first criteria of trying to ensure that all of us as consumers, as citizens, know our rights, to ensure that we can not get ourselves into trouble and then have to react to try and fix the situation. I'm sort of I'm not sure I'm addressing your question exactly, Himanshu, but generally the numbers have gone up is what I would say. And the lack of access to government bodies, authorities, agencies has diminished dramatically. That means there's very little access to try and resolve a matter. And that's happening across the board, continues even as of today. And I can definitely speak for the state of Goa. I'm sure it's happening in other places. Urgent matters are always continuing to get priority. So things have sort of taken a backseat in terms of redressals and solutions.
That's an interesting insight. I think, Gaurav, you're right. While we are saying that the consumer rights are intact, but addressing is taking a backseat primarily because of this COVID-19 and the backlog of the legal cases. My question to Rama ma'am, what is the trend that you are seeing now? I mean, can you highlight any recent matters that have come during the COVID-19 where consumer rights have been challenged and they have knocked the door of law?
See, there have been a couple of cases that we filed with regard to defective product and things like that, where the consumer tried to get a resolution with the online whatever dispute resolution mechanism, but that didn't work. But we have filed that and there has been no response as yet. That case has still not been taken up because they feel that that is not of urgency. And then we have the SOP still going on till the 7th of January. So we are hoping that that might be taken up post 7th Jan, when we are hoping that the courts will function more than what they are functioning now. And also there were a couple of cases where we took up the matter regarding refund of airline tickets which was collected, and then it was they were all cancelled and the airline did not respond much. So we filed those, but then before they could come before the court, the Supreme Court had passed an order that the tickets have to be refunded. So I do not personally have much experience in the court post-COVID with regard to any consumer disputes.
Okay, so that's quite
Much, if I may add one example here, if I can take a minute.
Yes,
so to add an example, in Goa, hospitality industry had been mandated to refund certain fees, but many of them single-handedly chose not to do so. And we had several such cases of tourists who were coming down from Canada, US, outside, who faced significant problems in recovery, and they eventually came to us. And these the values are small, so the court system, going to court, etc., just doesn't make any sense. We're talking 30,000, 50,000 rupees or a lakh. So we ended up directly, sort of taking the recourse to the amplified social media platform, reaching out to the parties directly, getting them on the table and resolving them. They were resolved, which is great, but these are the kind of issues. Just wanted to share that as an example.
Yeah, so that's quite
interesting. If I may add to that, we also contacted the parties and many were resolved that way without approaching the court. And also, there are a couple of organizations that I'm attached with for their legal work. So through the organizations also, consumer protection organizations, we had reached out, we had sent letters, some insurance claims and other things. They were all resolved. And hospitality, of course, yes, they were resolved. So, yes. All these without going to the formal court for resolution of dispute.
Right. Right, thank you. Gaurav, circling back to your answer, I understand that you run a platform called Help Desk as well. So, citing this example, and I had a personal experience where I was booked to travel to Sri Lanka in the month of March 2019, right when the lockdown hit. Incidentally, as a preemptive measure, we ourselves cancelled the ticket. But since it was a preemptive measure, so airlines refused to refund. So we postponed it. We postponed to December. And here comes December, COVID-19 is still on. And the airline said that we can still postpone it to some other date. But, and in case you want a refund, we'll give it to you in the same channel, the way you booked. We had incidentally booked it through, I don't know the name, but it was a travel agency through their gift cards. Okay. Now the travel agency packed their bags because of COVID-19. And I'm left to, I don't have any clue that if I ask for a refund, they will give it back to in the form of coupon cards, which the travel agency will own, and they already have filed their bankruptcy. So what do I do? So I resorted to reaching out to the airlines. They refused, but the moment I talked about going to the social media before taking the legal route, they agreed that, okay, we can again extend it without charging you any money. So now I have shifted it for 3 more months. Let's see. I'm hopeful that the COVID-19 virus will not affect my travel vacation plans. This time, not Sri Lanka to Goa. So I'll see you, Gaurav, there in Goa.
Look forward.
Yeah. So maybe you would like to elaborate a little bit more about how your platform handles these kinds of grievances. I mean, I understand that you do a lot of more things, but in the light of the consumer rights, what does your platform do? And before you actually hit the legal route.
So briefly, the platform is bringing together empaneled consultants across the country, consultants, startups, existing organizations, bodies. We're trying to bring others together to become sort of the single point where we can ensure a solution is given to a consumer versus them having to engage with multiple entities. Not only that, we also try and give them answers very transparently about the system. We are new, so small baby steps, but it's been a wonderful response in the last 1.5 years. But the idea is to create transparency, share information about the process, costs, options available, and thereafter focus on trying to resolve without the legal system being engaged at all. Just direct negotiations, direct private entities. We sort of somehow managed to do it, and if I'm saying this correctly, I'm pretty sure that we've managed pretty much 100% on our own without having to go to court. And I'm talking not very large numbers, about maybe 80 to 100 in the last 6 to 8 months. Such cases is what I'm referring to. But the fact is, and we're keeping it small so that we know how to approach and create the proper procedures and then scale up in future. But the idea is to work with all of you and use the system despite its shortcomings to attempt to fill the gaps and provide the fastest, quickest solution to everyone out there. That's the intent.
Yes, so that's what I wanted to. I'm sure that your objective is not to get the platforms like Lawyered or maybe legal professionals out of job. I'm sure we're gonna do our own bit the way we are doing, but of course it is in conjunction to the overall effort that we are trying to put. The objective is to ensure that the consumer's rights are protected and they get justice. So one question before we set out the last question for this evening is like, we know that due to this COVID-19, the market has been hit badly. Consumers have been really hit hard. They have been averse to spending. I mean, even if we all look at our own spending in the early days of lockdown, it had really plummeted. So now we need to ensure that the rights of consumers are protected, and we need to encourage them for spending, because if they don't spend, the market will not bounce back. So I wanted to pick up your brains, all three of you, in terms of what are the views in terms of relaxing certain rights or conditional applicability of consumer rights in the post-COVID time in order to strike a balance between protection of businesses and protection of consumers. So I remember, Arpita, you saying, talking about the elephant in the room, but I'll give you the space in the next question. But here we are talking about how to encourage consumers spending more. Or is there a way by which we can relax certain rights? Maybe we can start with Gaurav, you again.
Himanshu, my apologies. I'm going to actually pass on this one. I'm not. I want to allow the other experts to share their thoughts on this.
Rama, ma'am, you want to talk about relaxing certain rights? Yeah.
Well, I don't think there is any right that can be relaxed as such, because if you're buying something or you are availing of some service, it is for your own good or for your own use. And if you're getting a defective product, or say the service is not up to the mark, you will definitely have to take recourse to whatever method of resolution that you think of. So I don't see any right as such which can be compromised with to encourage spending. Actually, because the rights are there in place, there is a possibility that people may be more willing to buy or avail of services, and because they are protected. I don't think there is anything that I can think of which can be relaxed. In fact, the right will encourage people to spend more, is my view.
Yeah.
Right, said. Now, one last question for all of you.
Much apologies. If I can add one comment there, just to add to what was said.
Yes, please go ahead, Gaurav, and then I'll give it to you after that.
So I kind of love the last comment. I think there's a lot of lack of trust in citizens and consumers with the systems that there are. And in fact, if the rights are reinforced and awareness is brought about, and they know, there's a great possibility with trust will increase, and hence, which is translated into much more of benefits for the economy. So just a little tidbit there.
Yeah, Arpita, you want to say something regarding relaxing?
I just wanted to add something to what was just said. That yes, of course, there is nothing that you can relax. What you can do is you can give additional impetus by way of something that you didn't do so long, but have started doing now. The law permitted you to put merchandise on discount, and I'm talking about myself now. I'm representing my own company. The law never prohibited us from offering discounts, but in my living memory, I haven't seen Fab India offering a rupee of discount on anything, because as a principle, we believe that it's what we are giving is the best. So therefore, there is no reason for us to discount anything. Cut to 2020, end 2020, we are on discount. Right? So I'm giving a live example that what you can do is you can pass on an additional benefit to the consumer if you really feel that he or she needs to walk in and needs to buy. It's a two-way traffic. The consumer doesn't walk in or walks in and just goes out, doesn't convert to a sale. It hurts her because somebody came all the way, and I'm talking about my physical stores now, which are fully operational across India, and running all the hours with all services and facilities available. Somebody walks in, doesn't buy, and goes out. It's a lose-lose for both. So how do we make it work is that we pass on an additional something that we didn't do. I mean, we never looked at the concept of refund. Of course, now we are sort of duty bound to refund, and if no questions asked. So we have, even without anybody really pushing us, we have started to do that. So I could see a question on the right side that the crash in footfall or the serious tanking of business that has happened in the brick and mortar sector. How do you bring it up? These are the only ways to bring it up. Because at the end of the day, we are social beings. We love to go out and shop. If I have to buy something, I would ideally, at least once in a while, would like to go out to the market and see options and, and actually physically touch, feel, choose. So that is to be encouraged, and to do that, I think the sellers have to walk a couple of extra miles here and there.
Yeah.
Or else this is not going to get back to where it was.
True. Yeah. So I think it is. I don't know if the COVID is done or it has just warmed up as we have been watching a lot of from WhatsApp universities that we are reading now. So there's a very thin line between use and abuse. You all would agree, right? Yes. The consumer rights in countries like US are so stringent that it is often abused. I mean, I've been hearing stories where people order something online, wear it for a party, and then return it back and I don't like it.
Very common.
That's a simple statement that they need to make, and the seller has no rights to refuse the refund. So while that's something that US has to take care of, but in India also the news is getting tightened on the businesses. Now, keeping the business interest also in mind, how do we put a balance between protecting the business interests as well as consumer rights? I would like to ask Arpita, if you can just state this. While we have been rightfully talking about consumer is the king, we also need to take business interests in mind. So what are your thoughts in terms of managing and maintaining this balance?
It's a tough one. I mean, not your question, but the answer is a very tough one because it's very difficult to really do this balance, and also absolutely necessary because you can't just give in to everything every time. So I have had personally seen cases where somebody bought a set of very expensive silk curtains 8 years ago and comes back and says, "Oh, you know what? I'm a lawyer and I practice in the consumer courts and I'm going to sue you." So then what do I do as a brand? Then I just stand by what I said, that look, and then I had to personally remind that gentleman that if you are a lawyer, you must be privy to the concept of limitation on just about any right, that I cannot, a right dies if you do not exercise it in time. So having said that, we have myriad such cases where names are dropped, where threats are issued that I'm so and so, I know so and so, I want to write to your owner, your promoter, and you can imagine just as many examples. So we go by a very simple principle that if a person is genuinely aggrieved, and if we know more often than not it's about quality of the product, because we deal with handloom and everything hand done and hand spun and hand this and hand that, right? So if we genuinely feel after QC that there is indeed a problem, trust me, we don't waste a minute to immediately refund, give an exchange, or give a gift voucher or give cash back, depending on whatever the customer is satisfied with. And there, I don't look at the fact that who that customer is, whether she is from some part somewhere in Batinda or she is in a expensive condominium in Bangalore. It doesn't make a difference to me. If I know that the product has a problem, I do the needful. However, I just don't give in if you simply, threaten me by saying I'm a lawyer and I practice in the Bombay High Court, because that doesn't work for me. So we go logically, and we of course go hand on heart. When we know that we are on the wrong, then we don't waste time arguing. We simply, relent and say, yeah, we went wrong. So fix it. So that way, A, you also have the consumer with you. She does come back for another purchase. And B, you also have given a message that by refusing somebody who threatens you by either dropping name or dropping designation or dropping profession or vocation. So it's a balance, and how we do it is also that working very closely with the corporate communications group, which actually handles our customer service in the front line, and the lawyers at the back end. So the lawyers, I mean, we normally do not come to the forefront ever, because we are worst names if you want to resolve disputes. And again, I'm putting the elephant out there. So if you have a lawyer in a discussion, chances are you know where it will go. So therefore, we always stay at the back end, and we keep supporting our front end team with what they should do, what they should say on a real time basis. And only when it is at a stage where it's a no return, no recovery, then we step in and do what is needed. But I'm very happy to share with you that we've really been successful in the way we have been dealing with this, given the fact that we are a large brand with a very huge customer base. A touchwood, I mean, we have been able to resolve by and large without going to courts. Sorry to disappoint the advocates on the panel, but yeah, we prefer to do it in house.
Thank you so much for your views, Arpita ma'am. And I'll come to Rama ma'am. Before that, I'll ask Gaurav the same question. How do you think that the businesses need to be? I mean, the balance needs to be stuck between businesses and the consumer rights, protecting businesses also.
I may want to reword it in the sense, I'm not sure about protecting them necessarily, but if businesses are compliant with consumer laws and keep the consumer in the forefront, I think they will naturally create, as I said earlier, a certain trust with the consumers. They will themselves be compliant, and therefore the chances of grievances arising or issues coming up will be minimized. I think this is an important step for businesses to do. Consumers, as I said earlier, naturally, if they know their rights, similarly, they will mitigate, lessen the issues that can potentially happen. Thereafter, despite these best intended efforts on both sides, if an issue does come up, I think what Arpita ma'am just said, and I probably want to put it that from my experience, honest communication between the two parties.
Yes.
If that platform is enabled, which is what's perhaps happening, and unfortunately the legal fraternity does not have the best reputation, and that's where those experiences we are sharing. But one of the intentions behind helpdesk is also, so amongst the panel partners, we have advocates, we have CAs, company secretaries, we have so-called even agents and dalals who get work done with the government. We get everybody together, and our intent is to make it honest, transparent, zero corruption, which has not happened as far as I know in the country till date. We work with the government at all levels and guarantee zero bribes, zero corruption. And our intent is to bring together this community of individuals with integrity, whether it's advocates or others. Wonderful firm like Lloyd will be doing the same, I'm sure. So in a similar manner, bring together this community and provide honest solutions to everybody, not just consumers, but businesses as well. We have clients who are businesses, startups.
Yeah.
By the way, I'd love to share this. Yesterday, we have closed a 60 lakh recovery for one of the largest startups in the country, out of court. No lawyer involved. But we also simultaneously had a legal process going. We had initiated it. There is a need for both. There's no situation where the need will go away, for sure. But the idea is, why not look at alternative, quicker, beneficial solutions to everybody?
I think that's very rightfully said, Gaurav. I think while we are looking at the legal framework itself, where we can have the consumer dispute resolution mechanisms expedited, it's necessary and important that we have platforms like yours where the dispute resolutions can be done through an alternate way. I mean, not necessarily taking the arbitration method that the legal framework has outlined, but otherwise also, if anything can be settled outside court, it will of course reduce the pendency of cases that we are all inheriting each day. So with that, I think Rama ma'am lost her network connection, but once she's back, we'll ask the same question to her. But thank you so much for all these questions, for a very warm and wonderful participation. I would like to ask Sahil, are there any questions that we have from viewers? Rishwin, Sahil?
Hi. Yes, we do have the questions. Rishwin, if you can just broadcast the question one by one on the screen.
So the question is, yes, Sahil, please, you can go ahead.
Okay. So during lockdown, consumers were hoarding FMCG goods which harmed the community at large. What could have been the response of authorities to prevent such situations? Yes, Gaurav sir, please.
So we've actually faced this in Goa tremendously, and I was hands down, hands dirty in the system, where we all must know the government system, the departments function in only a reactive manner. That's the reality. They will not wake up and say there is hoarding happening, so let's take teams and let's inspect and fix the situation. It's largely based on complaint driven. Mm-hmm. The bigger problem is consumers don't complain. So this was a very strange situation. As we got into it, we started realizing it's not that the systems are not there. The government means reasonably well in some ways. They have a system, but they just don't have the bandwidth to unilaterally go out there and try and fix everything on their own. But nobody complained. So we ensured that these complaints were brought out, encouraged people to discuss and talk with the government authorities. We brought in inspectors whose job is to come and fix the situation. So a lot of it was done. I would just close by saying it's up to all of us to ensure we know our rights, utilize these agencies which are set up for us, at least in the limited way that they exist. Why not make use of them and try and create a better system around us?
Rightly said, so awareness is important.
Right. So Vidushi is asking, should there be a regulator which verifies online businesses before they go live? Will this help secure consumer against instances of fraud and misrepresentation? So if Himanshu sir would like to take this question, then
I would like to ask Arpita ma'am to answer this question. I mean, what's her take on it?
So, see, my take is that if you want to start a business either as an online marketing, a marketplace platform, or create your own platform, there are already a myriad requirements with the regulator. Yes. So you cannot pass there are toll gates here.
Yeah.
So let me just answer this question that there are regulators who verify 3, 4, 5 aspects of your business, and that starts from your product integrity to your privacy norms to how you handle data, and how do you manage the fiduciary capacity in which you're holding data, because data is a big issue in any online business. So all of these go through various toll gates before one can come up as a .com. So I don't know if that answers the question. So there is no way you can start without going through a regulatory process of verification is a one-line answer.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And in addition to this, I think there are additional checks and balances. I remember when, as a startup, we had filed for GST,
Yes.
and there was one more regulatory that we had to take approval of. So we were supposed to click pictures of our offices, and of course, along with the geolocations. So the app that the government had provided had integrated geolocation, so it was very difficult to fool such applications now, which otherwise in yesteryears was quite easy to give any picture, usko picture ko I think morph karke, I mean Photoshop. You can Photoshop the picture and send it across, but now it is practically very limited. So
Well,
regulators are already there.
And also, just to add to that, for example, I'll give you the example of what we deal with, because we deal with a lot of artisanal craft from vendors who do not really have a face. Sometimes they are working through aggregators, etc. So the regulatory system even makes sure that we have valid, enforceable contract with these people who are small timers in remote part of the country, and those contracts are up and about for viewing by the concerned regulator, which is the DIPP. So trust me, there are a lot of regulations which is overseeing this business today. So that way, if there is fraud and misrepresentation, those are then in between those lines how people still manage to play a little mischief and mislead consumers. But from a structural standpoint, I think it's adequately regulated.
Right, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, Mithila is asking, the main role of influencers or endorsers is to help with branding and outreach. They do not possess the tools or the technical know-how to verify the claims of superiority of products. Holding them responsible in cases of misleading claims is determination. Rishan, the question is, I guess, not complete. If you can provide the full question. So Mithila is asking if these influencers and these people endorsers who actually endorse these products and ask the audience that this product is good, and in case such product is not suitable or providing some sort of where is not good for health if it's come to food product or anything, how they are responsible on that aspect.
So rather, are they responsible? So I mean, maybe Gaurav, you can talk from this perspective. That
Absolutely.
should we hold influencers who are doing an ad of a particular toothpaste, and still the users, consumers getting cavity in their tooth, should they be held responsible?
That's a tough one. I'm also an actor, by the way, so I represent some brands here and there. Consumer law has this section. I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not technically going to be right. But on the e-commerce platforms, if the platform is simply providing a service of selling, then they're not to be held liable. However, if they have either representing the product as theirs and convincing the consumer to buy it, then they can be held responsible under the Consumer Protection Act. The recent one is what I believe when I was just going through it some time back. In a similar manner, it is the brand which is providing the product. We are just promoting it from that point of view without any engagement with the brand. So I would feel they would not need to be held responsible from that point of view. It would be the brand eventually which should be at fault and suffer. That's my take.
Rama ma'am, what's your take on it? The question is that did you hear the question rightly, or should I repeat for you?
No, I did not. I did not.
So, okay, the question that somebody from our audience is asking that the main role of influencers and endorsers is to help the brand with branding and outreach. They do not possess the tools or technical know-how to verify the claims of superiority of products. So, holding them responsible in cases of misleading claims is detrimental to them. What are your views on it? I mean, if the influencer or somebody who's doing an advertisement of a particular brand, should he be held responsible in case there is a flaw in the product?
Well, actually, there was a judgment passed where it was held that the person, the influencer who is endorsing a project or a product, or maybe, a person, whoever is endorsing, will be held liable, because there are many people who, depending on the whatever the advertisement or whatever the influencer says, will purchase or will avail of the product or services, and so that person will be responsible for any claim that he might make up to of course there are a lot of caveats. It's not as simple as that, but then yes, there were some real estate projects for which we had one influencer who had endorsed that. So there were a lot of cases filed against that influencer as well. But yes, up to there are decisions which says that whoever endorses a product should be aware of what the product is. But of course, there are exceptions.
So
I will quit acting.
Yeah, I was about to say that you better be careful.
Can I just add one line to this conversation? Because, we see influencers from very close, because we are into fashion garments as well, and other stuff which a lot of people want to be influencers for. I personally feel they must be reminded that with power comes responsibility. So if you think that you can alter a consumer's perception or what he or she needs to buy, then you also should be responsible that you're giving the right idea. Or firstly, that do you even at all buy those products ever, or have you ever known the product or service from close? Or you just, it's just another job for you or a transaction for you. Just somebody pays you X amount, you just go stand in those clothes or use that car or, endorse that real estate project. These are my individual views as a lawyer. Yes, I think they need to be responsible. Beyond the point, I think they need to really know what is it that they're selling.
Yes. So thank you so much for these questions. I just got alerted from Rishwin. With the interest of time, we may not be able to take more questions, but we will try to answer them on social media channels after the event. Rama ma'am, you have, so yeah, Gaurav, please say something.
Himanshu, just to close that one line, I've just confirmed. So the Consumer Protection Act 2019 does have celebrity liability. Liability has been fixed on endorsers in that act, so they are liable.
Yeah. So when Rama, you had technical difficulties, so we were talking about a particular point. I really wanted to give you a view before we close this discussion. You were talking about the news has been tightened on the businesses during this COVID-19 and how consumer rights are being protected. But at the same time, we need to balance out the interest of businesses as well. So as a legal professional, I'm sure you must be contesting cases in support of businesses as well as in support of consumers. So what is your take on it? Maybe you can give some highlights and closing remarks on this particular point.
Well, businesses have to be ethical and responsible. That's the main thing. So if they are ethical and they are responsible for whatever they claim to deliver and deliver what they claim to deliver. Yeah. So if they do that, then I don't think there should be any trouble at all for businesses. Businesses have to be honest and sincere in even resolving any complaints that might come their way. So with that, even the brand and the reputation of the business will rise. I don't think there should be any issue at all. And consumers also, I don't think consumers rush off to the court unless they are, there is some really, they have an axe to grind. Otherwise, they do not rush off to the courts. They do try other methods. So if businesses are a little more sensitive in handling those, it should be a comfortable marketplace for both the businesses as well as consumers.
Thank you so much. So before closing, I have few lines from a very famous poet basically. बेहतर से बेहतर की तलाश करो, मिल जाए नदी तो समंदर की तलाश करो, टूट जाते हैं शीशे पत्थरों की चोट से, टूट जाते हैं शीशे पत्थरों की चोट से, तोड़ दे पत्थर ऐसे शीशे की तलाश करो. So as we are in a very difficult situation these days, and this time is not, at our basically in our hands. So I hope everyone is keeping safe, sound, and secure, and taking all the precautions to be safe and keeping every other person safe. So with this, thank you so much. Thank you, Rama ma'am. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Arpita ma'am. And thank you, Himanshu sir, for such a wonderful session. And I'm sure the viewers have been really happy. I can see a lot of comments coming on from our Twitter handles and from our other social media handles, and people are bombarding with a lot of good insights. And thank you so much. And thank you, Lawyer and whole team of Lawyer. Thank you, Rishwin, for such a wonderful organizing of the session. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And apologies for joining late due to travel. Thank you.
My apologies for the technical difficulties that I faced. Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure being here.
Bye.